Hey, so to celebrate the launch of Zuplo's MCP gateway, I'm actually here with Alex Nahas, who is the inventor of WebMCP and collaborated with Zuplo on the creation of their MCP gateway. So let's go and say, hi Alex.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, so Alex, what we're going to do in this video is use this time we have with you here to get an explanation on what is WebMCP. What is, demystifies this thing? Let's take us through it. So Alex, you mentioned you're the inventor of this thing, right? You did this at Amazon?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the background of WebMCP.
Sure, so I first want to separate like what WebMCP is today. It's like a web standard, and it's like, it's pretty mature, it's like being added to the browser. But what we're going to talk today is like the original WebMCP, the repo I wrote, which is, kind of a precursor, which was one of the inspirations for the web standard. So we can go through it, but this is, we'll talk about the original architecture and stuff like that.
What's the goal of it though? Why would I use WebMCP? Before we get into the details, like why is it an interesting thing? What can I do with it?
Sure. I mean, like the core conception here is like agents are using things, right, on our behalf, on users' behalf, or sometimes, just by themselves if they're off the rails, like with these open clause. And we want to make like the web more accessible from them. And a lot of that is like if you've ever used, Playwright MCP to automate the browser, you like wanted to click through a page, fill a form, it has to like take a screenshot. And then like that gets ingested into its context. It has to like figure out, what button to click from that. It has to simulate a click, by writing, some sort of Playwright script or something like this, or doing a simulated click. And then it'll like take another screenshot and repeat. That's like really token inefficient. And it's like, same thing. If you just give an entire open API spec to an AI, it's not going to know what to do, right? So it's all about context management. And that's one reason. And there's another reason, which is auth. Another reason, which is auth, right? Auth being like, okay, we have 20 years plus of, sandboxing, security isolation, same origin policy, cross-origin resource sharing, all these things. Like the web has been, the browser has been kind of the kitchen sink to test all these things.
Hardened, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, the whole idea of WebMCP is we want agents to do things on our behalf. The web's already pretty safe. It's already pretty mature. Let's just use that instead of, building new roads for them.
Okay, awesome. So let's go through it in a bit more detail. Take us through.
Sure. So I think the important parts to understand WebMCP is like probably to understand MCP first. So like, let's say you have like an AI app, right? So usually you have like your LLM inference provider. This is like OpenAI, Claude, whoever. And then this will talk to a server. You have your LLM and your server here. This is like maybe like a node server. And this is the thing that's talking to the LLM. And let's say that you want to talk to, you want your LLM to fill out Jira tickets for you. So we have this service here, Jira. Okay, so how do I get my user who's talking to this LLM to talk to Jira, right? And then we have, some UI that they're talking to our application with. So the first thing you can do is if Jira puts out an MCP.
So this is a traditional MCP server. It's just a new type of protocol for an API on Jira that Jira would expose to the internet. Yep.
Exactly. So Jira has an MCP. This is the server. This is the client. It's like a one-to-one. Okay, so that's traditional, right?
Yeah.
So how do we have user A?
Actually, just a quick question on this.
Yeah.
So you've drawn this thing here. I think that says MCP in your bad handwriting, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, is that an MCP client?
Yes,
that's what
correct.
that means. So that's the client, that's the server.
Right.
One thing people might not know is like they think of the LLM as being the MCP client because it decides what gets invoked, really, doesn't it?
Yes.
But it does that by communicating back to the MCP client. There's like a protocol for LLMs to do that, right?
Yeah, honestly, like LLMs are the simplest thing in the world. They're literally just a stream of tokens or like a request response, right? So all you're doing is your LLM comes back, and what a tool call is, it's literally just like a fenced-in JSON blob that tells the model how to call a function.
Okay.
That tells the server how to parse this and then use this parsed thing to call that function.
So it gives back responsibility to this thing here that is running the MCP client that knows how to call this MCP server, and that's how it gets its job done. This is traditional, if you can call MCP traditional. Yeah. This is traditional lock stock pre-WebMCP MCP server, right?
Exactly. And this is whether, MCP is a protocol to standardize, Jira. So Jira, you don't have to write, everyone doesn't have to write their own integration for Jira. MCP was a way to standardize, before it had any sort of auth story, it was just like one person puts it on an MCP server and it was like local MCP. And then everyone can just download that into their server and use that to talk to the Jira API, right? And then we'll talk about auth later, but that's basically how it goes now. So conceptually, without auth, no auth complication. All WebMCP is doing is we let the token stream from the LLM pass right through the server into the UI, and then we run JSON parse here. So JSON parse in the UI, and you can think of this as the like MCP server, and then it's just making the calls to the Jira API.
Got it. So in this case, the UI is obviously some web hosted thing. It's running JavaScript and so on.
Yeah.
You receive that encoded chunk of instructions back from the LLM. You kind of execute it here. This is an MCP client now, and that can call something that already has permissions to call. So if this is hosted inside, Atlassian's website or something, it can call the Jira backend because it's already on the same domain or whatever.
Exactly. Like you would be making a fetch request. So this would be, in the case of like Jira.com, if Jira wanted to engage in, they would just expose WebMCP tools on their website. So you wouldn't need to like have some sort of MCP server. You just go to their domain, whatever, right? Now the downside of this is that you have to be on, some sort of UI like sandbox that has an authenticated Jira ticket.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you own both the server and the UI, and you want to have some sort of LLM integration, like you want to, say you're Amazon.com, and you want your users to be able, to use their agent to interact with the page and shop for them on their behalf, then there's not much point to having this remote MCP for Amazon.com because you want your user to be in the UI.
I mean, you already get all the benefits. You've already designed this API down here to be consumed by the JOT token here, assumingly.
Exactly.
And so all your authorization is in play, all your business rules, all of your logic is already expecting this user, Bob, who's signed in here to be able to perform these operations against this API.
Yeah.
So there's no chance of you in that sandbox of sort of an elevation of privilege or anything like that,
exactly.
right? Bob can only do what Bob is supposed to do. But you do have to embed the AI experience into your UI in that case, right?
Yes. And so there's and then that comes to the point with okay, well now I need to ship a UI, like an LLM in my UI and all these things, and that's honestly a lot of work. But what's exciting, so when I was at Amazon, the big thing is we have thousands and thousands of internal applications, right? And if you've ever worked at a big company or even a small company now with AI, people are blasting out these internal apps there's no tomorrow. But you have to, a lot of integration projects are just taking information from internal app A and then putting it in internal app B, right? And that's so much. For example, maybe you're working with accountants on month-end close, right?
Yep.
And they need to get all the information from all the different financial web apps and then put them into an Excel spreadsheet or something, right? They're just compiling information. So in the browser, if you work at a big company, you probably already have something called single sign-on, SSO, right? Where you have tab, I'll call this tab 1, tab 2, and these are both internal systems. They're both logged in based on the single sign-on. Maybe it's injected via Chrome extension or some other way, but you're signed into every internal web app as you, the user, when you sign into one. You don't need to see a sign-in screen for every single different internal web application, right? Okay, so at Amazon we had this little thing called Amazon Q, which is a Chrome extension, and this is the AI agent, you can call it. And this, the question is, okay, how do we want this agent that already lives in the browser to interact with these services that are right now represented as these two different websites? So one option is, okay, each of these services puts out their own MCP server remotely. So let's say, that's probably not the right place to put it. So we have, let's call this server 1, server 2, and they do, standard REST request response or, whatever, GraphQL, whatever protocol you're using. Okay, so if you're going to do a remote MCP, this Chrome extension needs to talk to these servers directly. They need to expose MCP servers, and then the Chrome extension needs to host an MCP client or clients and then combine them into one, all these things. But with WebMCP, and the thing I wrote at Amazon was, why not have the MCP server actually be inside of these web pages, right? Each one exposes its own tools, and then this AI agent can just have those tools exposed to it. And the way it works is this browser has this transport, which is called post message, which is just its own event-driven way of sending messages across context. So like, same origin policy. This tab has its own like execution sandbox. This tab has its own execution sandbox. They're isolated from each other. But they have this little thing called post message, which is like you can send messages to other origins in the browser. And you can do the same thing with extension. So I wrote custom transports over post message. So this Chrome extension can talk to MCP servers that live in here, and nothing leaves the browser. That's what I wrote. So that's what WebMCP is now. And then the guys from Chrome and Edge, everyone was trying to kind of figure out something similar, and that's what you see today is like what WebMCP is now. So instead of a Chrome extension, it could just be like Chrome and Gemini and Chrome. Right?
Got it. Okay.
Or Edge's thing, or Firefox's built-in, or any extension.
I imagine this has a lot of interesting uses for like complex legacy apps. Where there might have been sort of SAML authentication in play in some old legacy system. Is this useful in these use cases?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like if you've ever been worked with a legacy app, like pushing anything to them or doing any sort of project for them is difficult, right? I mean, it's just a lot of times the smallest code change you make will break the thing. The thing has been stable for all these years. You don't want to push to it. But changing the UI is pretty much always a safe thing you can do. These WebMCP tools are basically like data test IDs. Like they don't alter functionality. They just expose it. So yeah, I mean, you don't have to create a new JSON API for maybe a Rails app that only serves HTML. You don't need to figure out auth or OAuth like you do for remote MCP. But yeah, if you're just doing internal apps that are never going to be shared to the public, you don't need a public API. I think WebMCP is a great choice.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So what is the status of the web standard? Is this like if old browsers got this built in now? Are we there yet?
So it's exciting. So it's actually still in draft. Like It hasn't actually been accepted as a web standard yet. But I mean, Chrome has it in origin trial now. We have people coming to the community group meetings that are from every major browser vendor now.
Yep.
We've had Apple, Firefox, and Chrome and Edge obviously. So yeah, I think as it goes, it needs sign off from the TAG, which is the technical architecture group.
Yeah.
People like this, but I think the hopes are high. I think it has
almost there then. So just up to the finish line now, and just gotta cross it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you for the overview of WebMCP. And I think to close this video, let's just take a moment to celebrate this beautiful piece of art here and be grateful that Alex is a rockstar software developer and not an illustrator.